Thomas and I are good friends and probably the people that should be least listened to. So let's go ahead and get started. So grateful that you are here. This work right here at the edge of mental health and faith life is absolutely crucial. And what you can see in the research, conversation, and the actual actualization of the work in the church world has had some of the most church world, synagogue world, mosque world, everywhere. It's had such a profound traction for people because of kind of built-in trust. That's been a big deal. So what I want to do is I'm going to ask these panelists to tell you who they are, a little bit about what they do, and then we're going to walk through some questions about how they do it, theology, structure, and stuff like that. Does that make some sense? So along the way, please listen for the questions that you hope to ask. If I don't ask them, just be ready to be able to ask those toward the end. I find that the best questions come from you after we've talked for a little while. Does that make sense? All right, great. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm not going to make you since you just came up here. Yeah.
Don't make me.
We are absolutely going to make Rebecca Brune. Becca is going to start us off. Just tell us who you are, where you find yourself in leadership, and maybe kind of why you're involved or interested in the mental health and faith community world. So, right, name, where you serve, and why you're engaged person.
Can you hear? Okay. So I'm Becca Brune, and I am Executive Director for the Congregational Collective. The Congregational Collective is a newly seeded 501c3 under the H.E. Butt Foundation. Professionally, I've been in this job for 7 months. Had big shoes to fill. We'll talk about that later. And prior to that, I was at the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute for five years. Prior to that, I spent most of my professional career in the world of philanthropy. Why I'm involved? I think I am late to the table. I should have involved a long, long time ago. Having worked at a policy institute, I think the secular institutions and community can learn a lot from the faith community. You guys have been doing this work. You are doing this work. So I'm just trying to catch up and learn from you.
Hi, I'm Brune, and I am a pastor at Family Life International Ministries. I work with the collective also. And after 30 years, I wonder how I pastored without the knowledge of mental health. And Jerry's here. I'm so glad because Jerry was the first person that I met in connecting to mental health work and in transforming my community, because that's what we're doing. I'm pastoring my community. And in the area of mental health, the person that has been most transformed is me. And the empathy that mental health knowledge has birthed in me has caused me now not only to change my entire families. I think it was Tony Evans that said, transform people, transform families. And transformed families transform churches. And transformed churches transform their communities. And so we have transformed my church, and we are now in the process of transforming our communities. My church, I can actually say, my church is one of the safest places for someone with a mental health challenge. My church is. Yeah. There you go, Thomas.
Thank you. Well, I think you guys, some of the clergy in the room may agree, one of the hard parts about being clergy is that you realize you can't go to someone else's church, because I know I want to go to that church, but I'm busy on Sundays. My name is Reverend Thomas Hankins. I'm a United Methodist pastor. I'm kind of going to wear two hats on this. As of today, I'm the pastor at Gaddis United Methodist Church in Comfort, Texas. So I get to speak to this from a rural ministry context, which is entirely different than an urban mental health context, right? And also for the last 2.5 years, I worked at Methodist Healthcare Ministries as a pastor, which is, a nonprofit that some of you may be familiar with here in San Antonio. So I get to speak from it from an asset-based community development context as well, and the engagement between the mental health apparatus and the church communities that way. Why I'm here, I can't tell my story without the story of my journey with mental health. My journey of mental health is why I am here. And if it wasn't for the integration between spirituality and mental health response, then I wouldn't be here. So it is important for me to kind of further that, I think, and that's why, yeah.
Thank you, man. What's up, everybody? My name is Dave Morillo. I'm the pastor of St. Paul Lutheran Church, just south of downtown in Southtown. I am a part of this work because I've been in Texas for 10 years and serving this church. And every day we go out in our community and we see people that are hurting, are struggling, regardless of what that looks like. As a pastor, as a leader of this community, this congregation, I feel called to serve the people that are struggling in whatever ways they are. And it turns out that a lot of it is connected to mental well-being. And so our church has been asked to serve with the Congregational Collective and come alongside some of these great community partners. And so we're here to do that, to serve in a holistic and complete way. And we feel really that it's our call by God. And so that's why I'm here, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So as you can see, very dynamic, very fascinating folks in different spaces, places with different kinds of responsibilities. But I'd love for you to, and I'll start with Dave this time because you're nearest, I'd love for you to tell us theologically how you're thinking about this work. Like, what is it that you believe is sort of at the core of why a faith community should be engaging in mental health at all? And so since, those of us in the faith world come from there to the mental health, talk to us a little bit about the theology of that.
Yeah, great, man. Love it. So for those that have been in this room, the spiritual track, it's great. We had brain science this morning with Dr. Harris. We had contemplation with Dr. Oden a moment ago. And now we get my favorite, systematic theology. So thank you for this opportunity. No, I would say this. I mean, there's a famous line in the Bible from the Gospel of John. It says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. If you read the rest of that book, it turns out that is a story about Jesus coming down, about the notion that God didn't leave us in the mess, that God didn't just say, good luck, that he came with us. And regardless of your religious background, right, with Jesus or whatever it is, all of us religious folk, I think, are called into that work, and to say the way that we believe this divine cosmic energy force, God, came to be with us, to comfort us, to give us hope, love, encouragement, peace, joy. I think we, therefore, are called theologically to then turn outward to the people in our communities. And so just to give you a snapshot of our church, we are a Lutheran church that's been there for over 100 years, and many iterations and many different kind of, strata of connection. But throughout, we have decided intentionally, and there's a great lineage that I'm a part of, to never just close the walls up and say the church is for Sunday morning, we're just going to kind of do our thing and that's it, but intentionally look outwards to try to remember what we read in the Bible, that God came with us so that we then can go out and be with other people. So I think this is not just an option, this is integral. This is fundamental, essential to what it means to be a Christian, a leader, just a person of faith. We're called to go be with people.
Yeah, to add on to that, a growing conviction in my heart that I'm still trying to figure out how to articulate is that God is not opinionless, that for many years American Christianity has crafted a beige, neutral God that we get to keep in segments of our lives and not bring with us into the rest of the world. But that God intimately cares about the mental wellness and health of the people that I see every day. It's not just that I do this because I think people should be healthy. It's not just that I do this because I think people deserve to be happy. It's that I do this because I think God cares about people's wellness. And I see that what was transformative for me was when I started to see that in Scripture. And God's response to people, when I really started to take biblical stories seriously as stories of people struggling with mental health. There are so many characters and people in the Bible that express suicidal ideation, and we, I think, growing up, just kind of write that off as them being petulant or something. And when I went through that, all of a sudden I started to realize, like, oh no, I know what it means I know what state of mind you are in to say those words out loud to God. And it's not petulant. It's actually the most real thing in the world. And to then see that God has a response to that was really powerful. So that is kind of the theological framework that I pull from.
That's good. That's good. I think of the scripture in Genesis 2:7 that says, "And God breathed into man the breath of life, his breath, and man became a living soul." So my soul is my mind, my will, and my emotions. I'm supposed to reflect who God is through my soul. However, when I'm traumatized, I'm unable to do that. And so Christ died to restore. Restore means to put back what was previously there. To put back my ability to reflect God again. Mental health is the understanding of what I need to put back, of how to restore the human soul so they can once again reflect who God is. That's the work of the church. That's what we do when we wear a t-shirt in the morning, on Sunday morning, that says, God cares about your mental health. When we wear a t-shirt that says, it's okay, Thomas, to not be okay. We understand. We don't judge you because of the traumas of your life. We are here to help restore you. And understanding that mental health is just one layer of the multi-layered issues that we have to deal with. But the church is so fundamentally equipped with the empathy and the love and the compassion that she needs to make people whole and restored again. I am so excited.
I'm going to help you. I got you. No.
I'm quitting my job.
No, I'm quitting your job. I'm quitting my job. I just quit Dave's job. I'm like, clearly we have a new San Antonio pastor. Let's all just figure it out. Like, I often feel that way. So beautiful. Thank you so much. Rebecca, I'd love for you to hear, to respond to the same question, but I'd also love to pin on, could you tell us in more detail what the Congregational Collective is? Because I think there's something really unique in the work and in the kind of hope that it can bring this city. So do you mind sharing both of those things?
So Scott and I know each other well, so he could see my eye contact, and I was like, you are not going to make me go after that, right? So this was his way to give me a softball to say, okay, here's the other question you can answer, because you cannot go after that. Okay, so thank you. So the Congregational Collective, again, is a very new organization. We were seated, and we have the sole purpose, the vision of really creating churches to be the safest places in this community in San Antonio, to lean into, right, and support and address mental health and mental wellness. We're doing that in a pilot. We have a pilot of 8 churches currently, all from different quadrants of the city, all variety of sizes, socioeconomic, you name it. It was very intentional to have a very diverse group of churches, some large, some small. And basically, we are working with their congregations, the leadership in the congregations, and we have a series of trainings. And so there's some foundational training, skills training. One is a curriculi that is called Sanctuary. It's a free curriculi that you can find actually on the internet. So it's sanctuaryministries.com or .org, sorry. And it really is it's a series of vignettes. It's storytelling. It's individuals who are experiencing mental illness and in a journey of mental wellness. And it's a vignette to really help address the stigma, to create some shared knowledge about what is mental illness, what is mental health, and also some shared language. And so it really is seeding churches to kind of have that common language and common vision and common understanding of it. The second is spiritual first aid. That's a trauma-informed care curriculi. That is built around really looking beyond just mental health, right? It's beyond. It's your food insecurity. It's your housing insecurity. It's looking at what are the root causal issues. Is it that your husband lost his job? Is it that, your child is going through severe depression? You're having a crisis. You're seeking, you're losing your social network. So it's called it's a blessed framework. So it actually is helping us to lean into other facets of people's lives, to look beyond just the mental health, but look at their holistic life, and how do we as a community, as a community of churches, lean in to help holistically heal people, right? So it's a lens of compassion, a lens of understanding that is beyond just mental health. And then there's some evidence-based trainings that we're doing. So a big piece of this that's the foundational piece. A big piece is actually training congregates or navigators on two different evidence-based tools. One is called Empower, which is basically behavioral activation. It's a model that is out of Harvard Medical School. It's about 25 years of evidence-based practice in India, where they trained community health workers to deliver behavioral activation as effectively, if not more effectively, than clinicians. And so we've brought that to the United States. We translated from Hindi to English. It's also translated in Spanish. This is the first time, right? There's the only other place that's trained using this curriculum is Baylor Scott & White in Dallas, Fort Worth. This is the first time they are actually implementing this in the context of a non-clinic based setting. It is the first time it's actually being used within a faith community. And so what we're going to do over the next 12 to 18 months, and when I say we, I mean the people here at this panel, our churches, right, are going to be delivering behavioral activation within their churches. And we're going to be measuring over time the effectiveness of that. Because we already know that we're doing this work. And so what we're just trying to do is overlay on top of that some rigor and research to be able to measure that and show the value of that work. Part of what we're doing is we're a service line. The 8 churches are a service line in a system, a closed-loop referral system here in San Antonio called Gelada. It's not the ice cream, but it is called Gelada, and it's a closed-loop referral system. So our 8 churches are entering in, right, their activities, and we're assigning billing codes, right? So the hospital systems use billing codes. The reason we chose behavioral activation, it's a billable service under Medicaid and Medicare. And so we are going to track over the 12 to 18 months the activity, the value, right, of this work. And then we are going to be able to show the value that faith communities, that churches that are doing this work already have in cost savings to community. And then we are going to take that and go to policy leaders, and we are going to say, look, the resources you're putting into community that are going to nonprofits or city governments, we have a whole new solution for mental health and mental wellness in our community, and it's our churches. Does that help?
So, I want you to, but before you, well, first off, it's very dangerous to interrupt you. So I just need to confess that. But also, did you notice how Becca said, she didn't want to follow Brune, and then she, in her own space and time, dropped the same kind of bomb. Like I love to see the grit. I also, the uniqueness of each one of these answers, and the way to talk about this is so profound. And to think about what's actually happening in this city that is transformational worldwide is a big deal. So congratulations to that world of all the things. And I just love the power of both of them in their unique ways. So Brune, would you please?
I just wanted to give an example of what Becca was just talking about the training with Harvard, because I received a call one morning from someone at my church, and her sister had called called her because she knew that we did mental health services. And I called her sister because I'm being trained with Harvard, and they've taught us how to use a PHQ-9. I called her sister on the phone, and I was able to go through the depression model and talk with her. And she scored like a 23 or 24 or something like that. But I was able to articulate and understand what she was feeling. And I talked to her about suicide because, and she had contemplated, she had a method, a time, a place, everything. She said, I'm going to do it tonight while my mom's at work. And she said, this is how I'm going to do it. She already had the pills and everything. But because of what we were trained to do and how we are able to cover them, I was able to call the Now Clinic and get her an appointment. She was able to talk to a psychiatrist that day, 15 minutes later. Come on, guys. There was no 3-month wait she couldn't even wait for 3 hours. Someone had, because most people, and they did a study on this, if they have a plan and a method and a time, within 5 minutes to 1 hour is when they execute it. She didn't have that kind of time. And so because our church was trained by the collective and to how to handle these circumstances and how to deal with people and how to walk with them so they're never alone, we were able to save someone's life. The conversation about her would have been different. And not only were we able to just help her, but we can follow up with her. How are you? How are you doing? So I called her the next day and I talked with her therapist. So we're able to do follow-up work. So the church has all these giftings and abilities and just the talents to help people to recover and recover well. And that's what's so awesome. Did you jump?
I didn't jump. I did the jump that you're like jump like I'm gonna go take a hill jump. Like let's go. Like please, good luck, but go. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm throwing Scott a bone again. I think one thing that is incredible to me as a pastor, and y'all might agree or echo, is how many people come to me and say, I don't go to church. I haven't been to church in a long time. I don't even really know, I don't even believe in God, but I need help. Like how it is like the rapid response unit of communities still to this day, even in a culture that is waning, in terms of institutional Christianity or religion, right? Still somehow this thing represents the first stop for many people, right? And to be able to intervene in that way is just an incredible thing, right? And that's a beautiful example. So, yeah.
Can I just share a story, an illustration? So when Harvard came down, the Texas Tribune came down for the day from Austin and followed, and they did a beautiful article, and if you can Google it up, but it was a very well done article. And it was really talking about the partnership between Harvard Medical School and the Now Clinic, which is UT Health. And a really incredible piece to this that I think was something that intentionally we didn't put into design, I wish I could say that we did, was this idea of how the faith community, how the churches are actually reverse educating our academic and scientific institutions. Harvard has modified and adapted their training tools to be relevant for our faith community. Right? The Now Clinic has adapted and redesigned their entire clinical supervision process to be reflective of how to engage in community. And so that is huge. The other piece that I was going to use as an illustration is, I do think that this, having churches more engaged and being able to be equipped and support mental wellness within the community is going to create more relevance in community. And another example of the Tribune article is Dr. Roberts had emailed me on Monday, and he said, Becca, I think an unintended consequence has happened of our partnership. And I'm like, what? Well, he said somebody in community had read the article, heard about the 8 churches that are being trained and providing these services, and asked for a referral from the Now Clinic to one of those churches. So instead of someone calling the Now Clinic for free services, it's free services, right, to be served, they're like, hey, can you please let me know which church is closest to me? Because I want to get service from them.
So that's amazing. And like the whole point, right, of all the work, of all the things, all the time. So, but what I really value about that too is just the connectivity of it. So as an aside, two things. One is if you're 40 and below, like if you're a church and you want people that are 40 and below, maybe 30 and below, and you don't speak comfortably mental health language, you are considered non-relevant. It's so common. You know, if you go to and y'all all, those of you that know are looking at me like that is so true. If you don't know that, please talk to Becca, talk to these folks, and begin to have the conversations that can build some collaborative efforts into your communities. It's such a big deal. The other thing is, I happened to be in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, and they actually have an organization that is a governor's initiative that connects faith communities, nonprofits, and the government because of the traction that is starting to be realized in the faith communities. I get to take part in a thing called the Human Flourishing Project in the research world, and one of the things that they're discovering data-wise all around the world is the exponential potential that a human being has if they're in a faith community. As a human, so much higher than if they are not. And listening to some researchers that were not faithful people, just data people, but they know the culture. They were saying, you know, it's interesting this is my interpretation of what they said, shortening it. It's interesting because the church kind of eats its own. They kind of tear at each other. I wonder what they'll do when they see this data that they are some of the most important people in the world. What's going to happen? And I thought, well, just as a reminder, friends, if you are a leader or a participant in a faith community, what you're hearing today from any of us is that where you are is an incredibly important place to be for the transformation of people. Just so important. So I'm just so grateful for this conference, for your attendance, and for these folks. I want to talk a little bit about culture, if we could. Because I'm just noticing as I'm sitting there, each of you kind of represents a different culture. And you've seen loads of culture, I know, because you're in several different churches, but you also attend. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, if you could, how does the church culture or your specific church culture interact with mental health? What are kind of the barriers? What were the surprises? Just talk about culture and mental health. Go ahead, Deb.
I'll go first, yeah. So, I mean, I think there are some stigmas still. There is, and we've talked about this openly with Becca and the churches for whatever the reason. And so my background in my church, kind of German, stoic, really kind of old school. And so I love Germans though, shout out. But here's the thing, is that with that comes this, and the best analogy, I didn't say it as eloquently as he did this morning, but the church is there, right? We're here to be activated. It's just, we've been doing this for 2,000 years. We may have not called it what we're calling it now, but we're just doing what Jesus did, turning in love to people, right? Caring, hearing them, filling their needs, right? So, but what I'm trying to do to my people is let them know, like, the code words don't matter. The words don't really matter. What matters is that we show up and do the work and are actually like have an open posture. And this morning, I think Dan, the CEO of NAMI National, this is like, I've been trying to say this to my people for 6 months. This is what we're doing, ready? Is that you get in the room and the clergy, the religious folks, we are the binder up on the shelf that's collecting dust. And we're just sitting there waiting to be activated. And so the pushing against the stigma to my folks is to say, guys, we've got to take that down. This is who we are. Open the book. This is the DNA of who we are, who we've always been. So don't let the code words or the stigmas or the kind of cultural preventative issues, forces at work, stop us from doing it. And so, yeah, to be really full candor, there has been some issues where there's folks that are uneasy to lean into either the work or receiving some of the data, just all of it, right? But it's our task, I think, as the leaders here to tell them, like, we're going to walk with you in this journey of discomfort as well, right? That's the point. It's to try to get us all to come to the table together and to work through it. So the stigmas are there, yes, but there's progress, and there's no progress if we don't show up. So we got to keep showing up.
Thank you.
After you, sir.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll answer this in a different context than I think most churches represented on this stage, a town of 1,000 people in the hill country, right? And what I am finding is so fascinating is, everyone there has known each other for 50 years, right? Like literally, I have people in my church that joined in 1952. And it's this strange thing that like the language sometimes is stigmatized, but if they know that so-and-so is going through it, they were there for them in 1970, they'll be there for them tomorrow, right? And so it's almost like, how do I get them to learn a new way to think about an old thing, right? And it's been a kind of a different framework to have to get my head into, because I'm used to talking about all of these urban assets and how do we get people in, in systems and resources and things like that, and there just aren't. What do you do when there just aren't resources? When you are the resources, right? And that is, and I think people have figured that out over time, and now it's just trying to, how to put language to that. And because when I talk about mental health, nobody disagrees. Nobody reacts negatively to it. But we just don't use that language. So it's kind of trying to equip us in that way, I think. Yeah.
I find that mental health is most successful within the context of relationship. Because it's not contractual, it's really relational. And the church has relationships. And I've also found out with mental health, it's a bit like salt. You can't eat a whole plate of it. It makes you sick. That's too much. But if I sprinkle it on everything, it makes everything pop. So we sprinkle mental health in our kids' life. And so our teachers are trained to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental illness in a child. And so when a 9-year-old draws a picture of a child sitting in a dark corner, the teacher, who has eyes to see and is trained, says to him, "Now who is that?" And he says, "That's my friend, and he wants to kill himself." And so we call the grandma to find out who is this friend so we can talk to his mom. And the grandma says, "That's no friend, that's him." And we got a therapist on the phone to talk to him, his mama, and everybody. That's the context of relationship. That's something that the church has that other organizations don't quite have. And so that's why it's kind of our mission in life to really plead and encourage churches and pastors to please get involved in this work of mental health. We would get a call every 2 weeks about mental health. And now we're getting a call or 2 a day. Wow. Something is happening in our communities. And our churches and our pastors need to understand that God needs them at this time because God cares about the mental health of his people.
Amen. You sat next to her, Becca. I can't help you.
I'm done.
I know. Yeah, let's all go. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. Culture matters. Culture matters. The one thing I will say about the collective is the work that we're trying to do is not programmatic, right? It isn't transactional. Where the 8 churches that we've leaned into, right, that have trusted and leaned back into us, right? This is, a journey together, and very quickly, this wasn't. I think it took a few meetings, right, before people were like, well, what's the program? Where's the curriculum? Where's the book? I'm like, there is no book. Like, we're doing this together. And so that's been beautiful, but the learning in that is culture matters. And it's not reliant on a person. It's not reliant just on the senior pastor. It's not reliant on the associate pastor. It is, what we're trying to build is the network, right? The network within the church where this is going to live, and that's people. right? And so what's interesting as well is the larger the church, you would think, because they're more resourced, have more people, have more ministries to penetrate and to engage, have been the most challenging, right? The most challenging because of the layers and layers, because they are so well-resourced, and because of the volume and the number and the amount of engagement you're pulling at people to do, it becomes white noise, right? And so we're having to really pivot very differently with our large churches versus our small churches. But I will tell you, one of the things we do is every month the navigators get together and we bring in either trainings or resources or have conversations. And one of the sessions that we did was around change management, because I was in one of the meetings and I realized this is culture change. They're going through change management. And so we brought in corporate leadership from across the city, HEB, no surprise being one, to talk about how they've re-engineered their organizations to manage this sort of change and transformation. So culture matters, and it is not about a person.
So one question before we open it up to everybody's questions, and it is a simple one because we're kind of on time, and it is, if you had one resource to start with. You know, sometimes when we can come to these events, I always get really moved. It's powerful. I'm like, I'm in, let's go. And then like before I get home, it's gone. So if you could give everybody in here just one thing, like go look this up, or, you know, use this, or, you know, go to a website, maybe your church's website, because you've been able to have a collection of them, whatever it might be. But what's one thing for just like we could write down and it would be helpful to, as a practical thing. So give you like, I'm still yammering because I'm ordained and that's what we do, but I'm just really giving you time to, yeah.
The one that some of y'all will recognize this and know it, a resource, a book that you find I use all the time, because this is the most stigmatized part, especially in church, is Ron Rolheiser's Bruised and Wounded. Which is...
Can you spell that or get close?
Oh God, R-O-H-L-E-I-S-E-R, Ron Rolheiser, I think. He's a priest and professor, theologian here in San Antonio. And it is a book that will fundamentally change the way that you think about Christian response to suicide. And I think everyone you know or you knows something about suicide. And in the church, it is the thing that we have struggled the most with, I think, and for many traditions still do. And so I use that in my own theology when providing counsel or refer people to read it all the time. So that's a book that I would recommend.
Name one more time.
Bruised and Wounded.
Bruised and Wounded.
Yeah.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just go to Veron's church and everything will be the rest of it. But I'll steal from her too, really both of her and Becca. The sanctuary ministries, so we did what we did at our churches in terms of programmatics was we started doing Bible studies, right, with Bless, all these different resources we have in the foundation. But what we found, at least in our context for our community, was the sanctuary ministries. I think it's out of Toronto, Canada, I believe. It is a really good resource. They have lots of free things. And for us, at least, particularly because we have some younger people in our church, I'm 40 and under, thank you very much, that it really is an honest and authentic way to talk about spirituality and faith that I have found resonates with younger people, especially really, really well. And it's made phenomenally well. So sanctuary.org, sanctuaryministries.org.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Also, there is a Catholic version specific. So for our communities, it's a big deal. And there is a Spanish version, not with subtitles, Spanish version. And so I've been so appreciative of the work that Sanctuary has done. It is amazing.
Spiritual first aid is a phenomenal training. They talk about the 5 bliss needs. That most people have a combination of one or more of these 5 needs. BLESS are acronyms for biological, livelihood, emotional, social, and spiritual. And so we've actually taken that, and it's on our website. Anyone from my community can go on my website and ask help for any one of those areas, and we call you back within 24 hours, and we help you to meet that need. And in some cases, we have all 5 needs, and we're able to either refer you to get mental health at Now Clinic, or we get you HEB gift cards, or we walk alongside you. Any one of those needs, we help you. We are able to meet because of our partnership with the Congregational Collective, because they have so equipped us to do the work of the ministry. That is the real work, and that's what's awesome about the partnership with HEB Foundation, Congregational Collective. I just can't say enough about what you have done to empower our church and to just create such a move of God in our church.
How do we access that? Spiritual First Aid.
Oh, Spiritual First Aid. What's your website?
Spiritual First Aid.
He was asking about, are you talking about?
Google Spiritual First Aid, and there it is.
Google Spiritual First Aid.
Your website?
Yeah. And my chart, and my chart.
As soon as I don't find it,
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to cheat just a little bit. It's kind of so going, Sanctuary, ministries.org, and here's the cheat. Yes, to what Dave said, but we have an opportunity as a community in San Antonio. I would encourage every single one of you to go to sanctuaryministries.org, scroll down to the youth newsletter, and please subscribe. The reason I'm asking you to do that, beyond just looking at the amazing curriculum there, the reason I'm asking you to do that is we have just funded a study, and they are about to launch a youth series. Yes. And the youth series, it's amazing. I'll just tell you how they did it. They actually pulled over 300 youth from across Vancouver, the United States, so Canada, United States, and they said, look, if you could ask God any question in the context of mental health, what would it be? And if you could ask a psychiatrist or psychologist any question around mental health, what would it be? And they used those answers, those questions, to formulate the curriculum.
That's so cool.
And I asked the question, well, what did these youth ask God? What did they ask Him? And they said, God, if you're such a loving God, why did you do this to me? God, if there's gonna be light at the end of this, when is that gonna happen? What does that look like for me? And so they developed a series of vignettes, same thing, right, of youth telling their personal journeys and their stories. And then they have youth watching those videos, processing it. And then we have our youth who are going to watch the videos and process what they've processed. And the reason they did it that way is they said studies show that if a youth hears someone else in a group talking about it, it's a safer space. And so we have a chance, if we have a critical mass of people who sign up from San Antonio for that newsletter, we have a chance to have our churches be able to be part of that study, that youth series launch. So that's my request.
Great request. So Sanctuary Mental Health or sanctuary.org, ministries.org, scroll to the bottom, youth newsletter, subscribe. It's okay if you're not paying attention to me because you're doing that right now. It's okay. Got 4 kids. Yes, ma'am.
So Sanctuary also has a church survey. Have you guys had any experience using their services to create and develop a DNA survey for your church and assess their mental health?
Well, I don't know if it's the same. We have a survey as well that we did with our 8 churches that assessed kind of a baseline of their cultural readiness. Also, their sense of, do you lean into your faith in times of trouble, and versus do you lean into your faith for mental health reasons? And happy to say that our responses, which were over 1,700 for 8 churches, was pretty good. Validates national data. And so we have some local data. The other piece is we actually asked a question, which is phenomenal. Of those that participated in the survey, less than 50% had a youth ages 0 to 17 living at home. But when we asked the question, should the church engage with youth and address mental health, over 87% said yes. So they didn't have youth living at home, but they said, yes, without a question, our faith community needs to lean into this space. So to answer your question, we did our own survey.
Who wants to go find that 13%? That's what I want to do. Okay. Yes, sir. I don't know if I can reach you. I believe in you. Go ahead.
I'll speak up. Peter Onofre, New Life Christian Center, southwest part of San Antonio. Pastor Dave, Pastor Tom, Pastor Blue, I can relate to the work, and I'm so grateful for you all engaging as you have. Becca, the work is so inspiring, and I had been briefed months ago, and I wanted to ask a question tied to the partnerships, collaboratives. Dave and I had a conversation earlier today about collaboratives in the community. And I know NAMI's Bridges to Care wellness program, our church started about 18 months ago. And in our community in the Southwest, we're starting a resiliency hub, a resiliency center, working, trying to reach out as churches, but also to other entities in the community. That navigator is so critical.
Yes.
That empowering navigators to be that, we are the trusted agents,
yes,
and being equipped to do that work. So how do you see, as you go through this, your 12, 18 months, and we're going to be going, how do we run these tracks together to really maximize the work that's coming out of your work, the work, that body of work, and the body that NAMI Bridges to Care is doing, and those congregations are already launched, and just the opportunity for the next phase, if you will.
So that is such a fabulous question, and I couldn't agree more. I think Bridges to Care is such a gem and such an incredible asset for this community. 4 of the 8 churches that we have in our pilot were Bridges to Care churches. And there is no question that the trainings and the learnings and the journey that they had already started on was foundational for the work that we're doing. And so I see it as very complementary, very collaborative. I feel like Bridges to Care offers some incredible resources, leans in to really start to build those foundational skills and understanding. And I think all we do is we come alongside and we just begin to layer even more so, right, with the resources and understanding. And so it's very, very collaborative. And the other piece to it is, there's so much need, right? There's so much need. And the idea of creating these hub and spoke type models within community because of the trust is so critical. And so for nonprofit providers, those of you that are nonprofit providers and or work from institutional space, I think we're missing an incredible opportunity if we do not lean into our churches and our faith community. But we also need to lean in with resources, right? We're resourcing navigators in each of the churches. And what I mean that is we're investing in the capacity of these churches. And so as nonprofits and as institutions who want to partner, I think we also need to bring resources to the table to facilitate that.
And the resources that they give to the churches, in our case, we use it for the community. So we pay for, if someone needs to go see a psychiatrist, we pay for their medication. We'll pay for whatever their needs are. And so that's how we choose to use those funds to help our community because they need it. But I started with Bridges to Care. Shout out all the Bridges to Care family. And Jerry was my first contact with mental health, and then I worked with Donna, Dr. Keeley works. And it's a phenomenal place for a church to start because of the education. You learn how to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health. And so all of my leaders, all of our elders and ministers, they all understand mental health. So they're able to do more than just pray for you. Prayer plus works. Prayer without works is absolutely dead. So after we pray for you, we know how to refer you. We know how to counsel you. So that's the important part of being trained. Yeah.
Beautiful. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. I think, gosh, that experience you had, Ron, and helping that person was incredible. I'm wondering, though, in all of the training and everything, is there any thought about how a church is supposed to receive that request and then answer it so quickly, because many churches have a recorded line, you know, prompt this, prompt that, it's not open, maybe on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday or something. I mean, is there any thought about how you train somebody to answer a line and then direct it to the pastor that's there that day, or even maybe they don't need to, maybe they know how to answer the resources? I worked with NAMI's Warm Line. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a great resource. Yeah. And then I started answering phones as a volunteer on Wednesdays at my church. That helped me so much. That turned on sacred to me, and lots of times a person is upset, they just lost their job, they don't know about sacred and how you can look up resources. I mean, there's a lot to be offered in terms of a warm line, but I didn't know if you had thought about that, perhaps.
We get requests via all kinds of ways. We get phone calls, and Becca says it well, she says mental health starts and ends in the family. So we believe in training families, because the first person that will notice if something is not okay with you is your family member. So why not train them to recognize the signs and symptoms? And so we do that. So family referrals. I got an email today. I get texts. I'll get a text from a family. We don't get our food stamps until tomorrow, but we are hungry today. Can you send us a pizza? You know, and so that's real, that's mental health. Because when you're hungry, you can't think about anything else. And so it comes to you via a whole lot of different avenues. And so to be prepared every church has to be able to recognize what's going to work for my church. No two churches will do mental health the same. It's what's the DNA of your church. Who do you service in our church? We have a lot of young people. So a lot of our calls are between 19 and 30 years old. And there's something going on there. But every church has to be able to recognize who you're serving and what and what are you dealing with. So it's different. It varies for every church. But I get them all kinds of ways.
I think also you've kind of answered your question in the question, and that is, you know, if you don't have the warm line availability at your church, you could have someone just say, here's a phone number, or you get people trained at the warm, you know, there's like this kind of, it's a growing kind of detailing thing. And I love that you mentioned sacred as well, SACRD. Just look up SACRD. If you've never done it, you'll be amazed with the vetted, thoughtful work that's done by the leadership there to make sure that you can get connected to resources in your area that actually do what they say they do online, like all the things. They just do an amazing work. When I get to travel nationally right now, I get to say, yeah, but we have sacred, you know, it's my big card. So they do a beautiful job, and everything else. Just maybe 30 more seconds if anybody has a quick, yes ma'am.
I have a very quick question so these people that work with I'm not very familiar, I'm just hearing you all that saying you help the people when they have issue calling or coming to you all. Are these people trained for the first aid mental health? I had that training, that is wonderful. I'm trauma-informed care, and I had the first aid mental health. It's mostly about the people that are on the way for the suicide. Okay, tell me, suicidal, right? So it's very important to pick those and answer the way I finished my counseling here in Texas A&M, but that training was very awesome to say that even the very regular people can answer to those people, not to make him like, shock him, but get him and help him. So I was wondering if they have that training.
Like, how do you train specifically?
So we actually don't train in mental health first aid. Again, the foundational training we use is sanctuary and spiritual first aid. The two evidence-based trainings we do train in is behavioral activation, which is the delivery of a brief psychosocial intervention. So it's really cognitive, behavioral training where people can, it's 8 sessions, very rigorously done. There's a clinical supervision component to it. And so it's actually walking people through to build a toolbox to help them lean into things they value to change behavior that was based on how they felt or thought. So it's an evidence-based tool. The other one is peer support specialist training, which again is another evidence-based tool. Mental health first aid is amazing. We just landed with the 2 of those as the ones that we use, the core curriculum.
I think last thing. I think you raise a good point that a lot of this is about where the church's role, where faith community role begins and also ends, and the boundaries of when our job actually becomes to refer to a clinician and provider.
Can I just reiterate? I want to just make sure before everybody leaves the room, we're not training congregants to be clinicians, and we're certainly not trying to turn churches into clinical settings at all. We're just providing those early intervention, those tools to identify risks, high risks, and or symptoms or behaviors that are root cause to depression and anxiety. Anything that's beyond depression and anxiety, that's more acute, that's more critical, we've developed a cadre of resources to connect our navigators to, and we gladly and intentionally hand those off to clinical experts, which is why we have the relationship with the Now Clinic. They actually are that next resource.
So last one, I'm sorry.
The church is the ultimate pre-crisis. We catch people before they get to that stage. And so we're able, because most people are dealing with a relationship breakup, a loss of a job, a divorce, and we are the ultimate pre-crisis. So we get to them, walk with them so they're not alone before they get to that place of suicidal or thinking about suicide or doing something that. So we are able to prevent them from getting to that place where they need to go see a psychiatrist. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Last question.
Sorry, I'll try and make this quick. I'm Staff Sergeant Carlson. You're probably annoyed with hearing me.
No, not at all. I've liked you all day. And we'll be best friends at the end of this.
Just try and make this really quick. So I wrote it down. In relation to helping those with mental health issues, even if you're not religious, faith can help. However, individuals demonize it, and it's more okay to do that nowadays than it is to say you're a child of God. Additionally, people lose focus easier these days, and being told to research this huge book is far harder than hopping on a video game or watching Game of Thrones or something for your mental health, for some reason. The numbers show faith is one of the best ways to save someone's mental health. Believing hurts initially because believing contains the opposite of confirmation bias, because to believe, you know at that point that you are a sinner and that you have done bad things, so you're not this great person that you might feel you are. And so with that in mind, how can you approach helping individuals, religious or not, within this context, utilizing faith, which is the biggest means of helping people with mental health?
Go. All right.
Bring it home, Thomas.
Yeah, my quick answer to that, which is a very complex, multi-layered, and excellent question, is all of that faith, all of that theology happens in relation. And that is something that someone finds as they live in a community that loves and supports them. And that's what all of this is about. So you do not have to believe what I believe for me to love and support you when you walk in my church doors, right? And we'll get there eventually, maybe, or not. But in the meantime, I'm going to support you through whatever it is that you're going through. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for your time. If you guys would join me in thanking these folks, it'd be great. You guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend.